Now, casting a quizzical, questioning and sharply analytical eye over the day's events, our political correspondent, Vicky Young, who's here, BuzzFeed's Emily Ashton and Raphael Bear from The Guardian. It's great to have you all in. Vicky, he says he's ready. Steady Eddie's ready.
We're just saying there's a rap there, isn't it? We just keep on mixing that pretty quickly. He is. I mean, I thought what was so interesting about this is that if you're going for a job interview, they say, play to your strengths, you know, just focus on that. Whereas actually, Labour today just turned that completely on its head, and it's kind of like, you know, we're not trusted in the economy. His leadership's a bit of a question mark over that, so we're just going to focus on that. No, you know, it's a big gamble. It's a big gamble. But that's how they've just obviously decided they had to take these things head on, because it's just proving a barrier for too many voters.
Exactly. You've got to get your bit. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? The elephant that he actually, funnily enough, in Manchester, ignored. The last time he was up there, the economy. But do you think it's going to work, Anna?
Well, I mean, it is a bit of a gamble. But, you know, what people remember in Labour, when you think about Labour and the economy, you think of that note, don't you, that Emily and Byrne left.
That was a dumb thing to do, wasn't it? A bit of a joke, but, I mean, people are still talking about it, aren't they?
Three times by just members of the public today, I noticed, on BBC and our opponents. You know.
It's really resonated with people.
Where is he? Quick question, where is Liam Byrne?
Good, I've seen him.
Maybe that's why.
Yes, but you know, this is their chance now to say, no, we are really a party of government, trust us, we've got it sorted, this is all about economic discipline. But yeah, he forgot to mention deficit in the last conference speech, and this is his chance of trying to get that back and say, trust us.
It was a pretty strong performance in terms of, I mean, I entirely agree with Emily that it's quite interesting to go in on something that is obviously quite defensive. I mean, there are a lot of voters who will say, well, you know, I quite like the idea of Labour, but I'm not sure I can trust them with my money. And to make addressing, so trying to neutralise a negative, the front piece of your manifesto launch, is quite a kind of gutsy move. But what a lot of people who were in the hall seemed to say, and what struck me, was how sort of relaxed and confident he seemed. So he certainly feels that, you know, this is the right thing to do. And you certainly get that sense that's been creeping over the last couple of weeks, that at least there's the sort of theatrical side of looking like a leader. The performance, he did a quite a good relaxed Q&A with some journalists, with the audience. He, you know, certainly all the Labour people I've spoken to say were very happy that he sort of looks the part a little bit more than he has done in the last couple of weeks. But it's leaving it a bit late to sort of step up in that way.
Yeah, the atmospheric's a little bit better now. You'll all be back in a few minutes, but Christian Fraser has been delving into the manifesto for a more detailed look at all the issues.
Yes, the first page, and really the central theme of Labour's manifesto commitment today, is this: cutting the deficit every year through the course of the next Parliament. Although, as many of our political correspondents have told you, there's been no date set yet for eliminating the deficit altogether. In terms of tax, no rises in VAT or national insurance, nor indeed any rise on basic or higher rate income tax. But there is within the manifesto a commitment to a top rate of 50p for those earning over 150,000. And this pledge, no extra borrowing. But for Labour, as for the Conservatives, plenty of questions on where the axe would fall. What spending will be cut within government departments? Still no detail on that. There'll be an £8 an hour minimum by October 2019. Interestingly, they're not going to match the Conservatives, who pledged £8 billion extra for the NHS this weekend. They will stick to this figure for 20,000 new nurses, 8,000 new doctors, all of it funded by the new mansion tax on properties over £2 million. And there would be a freeze on rail fares for 1 year. For young people, there is this commitment, we've already heard it, to reduce tuition fees from £9,000 to £6,000 a year, and they would cut the voting age from 18 to 16 after that successful experiment in the Scottish referendum. There are plenty at grassroots level that will be pointing out that it is younger people who tend to vote for the left, and that will be a policy that will be particularly popular within the Labour Party.
Christian Fraser there in the campaign hub. Vicky, Emily and Raphael are still with us. Vicky, lots of detail in this manifesto. The biggest question, though, many people are suggesting, is when are they going to actually clear the budget, balance the books? Yeah, and which deficit are they going to clear? So there's a distinction between the current expenditure and they say they will still borrow to invest. But the Institute for Fiscal Studies today, I mean, pretty damning, saying we literally have no idea what we're voting for if you vote Labour, because it totally depends on the date when they decide to balance the books. So if they want to do it very quickly, then that's billions of pounds of cuts like the Tories want. If you wait to the end of the Parliament, actually means no cuts at all. So there's a huge difference, and they're not telling us the date by which they want to do it. Now, earlier I spoke to the Shadow Business Secretary, Chuka Amuna, and this was his explanation for that.
can I spell out what our budget is going to be in 2019, 2020, or all of the financial years between now and then? I can't, because economic circumstances change. We don't know what the rate of growth is going to be, so I can't give you a precise figure. I mean, in the same way that maybe if you're thinking about your family finances in the future, you probably don't know whether you're going to be able to afford to go on holiday in 2019 or where you're going to go, because you don't know what your situation is going to be.
Chuka Ramuna there, speaking to Vicky a little earlier. A wide variety of views, of course, on social media on this. We'll bring up some of the reaction. This from Tim Montgomery there at the very top. He says, we underestimated Miliband. He's discovered how to spend more, eliminate the deficit, all without raising tax. Or he's not telling us the truth. Let's spin through Mark Ferguson from Labour List. He says, Labour's manifesto is imperfect, but it tells a story about a fundamentally different kind of Britain. Interesting response there. And let's go to Jonathan Walker, rather. There he is. He's making his views there. And Paul Waugh as well. He says, Paul Johnson from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, no additional clarity from Labour today on tax and spend. We literally would not know what we're voting for if we voted for Labour. Vicky brought that point up a little earlier as well. And then George Eaton from the New Statesman, notable that Labour manifesto says fiscal commitments will not be compromised. Red line in hung parliament. Emily, the suggestion that Labour have not spelt out when they're going to balance the books, how fundamental could that problem be for them?
Well, it is fundamental. That IFS line is really quite damning, isn't it? If people going into the election don't really know what they're going to get if they vote for Labour. I mean, the Tories and the Lib Dems have pledged to eliminate the deficit by 2017 to 18, I understand. So, but Labour say they're going to cut borrowing every year, but there's no deadline as to when they'll balance those books, so just by 2020. And they also talk about this triple lock, and I think this language really turns people off. Yeah. What does the triple lock mean? You know, talking about deficit cut, you getting to budget surplus as soon as possible, no unfunded spending commitments. I'm not sure it really makes...
And the interesting thing is why Labour felt that they could go in this way, as we were saying earlier, going quite hard on something that you might be as a weakness for them. And the reason, they say, is that actually, because the Conservatives were hoping to be further ahead than they are now, they've been spraying out all kinds of unfunded spending commitments.
And they made the commitment to end the deficit by the end of the Parliament. I haven't got anywhere near.
So certainly the Labour would be, hang on, over the weekend we had 8 billion for the NHS, the Tories are saying, plucked off their magic money tree, 10 billion in unfunded tax cuts promised in the last Conservative conference. So, and the reason, and the Conservative view is certainly, well, it doesn't matter, we can essentially make this stuff up because people deep down trust us more with their money. It's Labour's problem, not ours. But I wonder if after a while people will think, well, hang on, Conservatives, we know you've sold us yourselves as the party of budget discipline, but you really are starting to sort of pluck numbers out of your ear at this stage.
Your ear?
Well, or somewhere else, something else.